Hi everyone, Dr. Nutt here. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite areas in psychology, and it's called social psychology. And I hope you like it as much as I do. We're impacted by it all the time. So, as we move on, this is basically our agenda, what I would like you to make sure you're familiar with as we move forward and talk about this topic. We're going to define it, how social psychology different from sociology, and we'll talk about conformity mainly on this particular discussion or video lecture. And then on another video lecture, you need to make sure you're familiar with obedience to authority and what's some of the research out there about that, and then compliance. Just so you know, compliance and obedience to authority are all considered like types of conformity. So think of conformity as a huge umbrella term. So, social psychology fits really kind of like right here, as you see on the diagram. Okay? As you know, psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes of an individual. Sociology, maybe you've had a sociology course. You remember you studied groups and basically cultures, maybe societies. So, again, you want to think about social psychology as how the individual is really affected by the group. Okay, so maybe that's helpful when you kind of see that. But social psychology is the scientific study of how actual, imagined, or the implied presence of other people really influences the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors of the individual. So important right there. If you can see that on the slide here, let's see if I can highlight it for you. Kind of a little messy, but moving on. So a few terms that come up often in social psychology is the term like deception. Um, in social psychology, deception is commonly used. And the deception is used, or it's defined as research where the participant or the subject is really not initially aware of the intent or the means of the research. Okay? Now, a Confederate in your history class probably looks very different than the Confederate in a social psychology class, because a Confederate in social psychology is really a poser. Okay, they are the subjects or the person that poses as a participant, and they're really assisting the experimenter. Okay, so I want to make sure you guys are clear on these terms in this discussion on social psychology. Now, conformity. Now, I don't know how many of you remember high school or middle school, but I think conformity, it does not just come up during those times. It comes up all the time, actually. Even as an adult, you're going to face conformity. Okay, so conformity is the changing of your behavior, not just your behavior, but it also maybe you've changed an attitude in effort to be consistent with the social norms or of a group or the expectations of others. So basically, if you've experienced peer pressure, okay, back in the day, then listen, that's conformity, okay? Peer pressure or any type of group pressure is considered to be a type of conformity. Sometimes people don't even have to say things to you, or it could be just more or less felt. Okay, so I just want you thinking about how many times you've changed your actions or an attitude just to be consistent with the group. That's conformity. Okay, so This research about conformity originates with a researcher named Solomon Asch. Okay, Solomon Asch did this experiment in the early 1950s, and he originally thought that really intelligent people or smart people would not conform. Well, he was wrong. Okay, but what I want you to know is, what did this experiment really look like? So what happened, there were two different phases for Solomon Ash's study. He had phase one, and he would test the research subjects individually. And he would ask them questions kind of like you see right here, okay, on the PowerPoint. And he would ask, the subject individually, which of these lines best matches the standard line, okay? 99% of the time, the subject would answer these questions correctly. But in phase two, he would put that subject in a group. Okay, he would ask the same types of questions, easy perceptual questions, but the difference in phase two was the fact that these other Confederates, these posers, would incorrectly answer the questions. So they put pressure on a research participant to change their answer so that they could be consistent with the group. And what this study identified was the fact that 70% of the subjects conformed to an incorrect response at least some of the time. So that's the pressure that conformity can really place on people.